Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are very honored tonight to host here and listen to Dr. Saaab Arikát. For years, he has been the chief negotiator for the Palestinians, and probably, and I do not wish to defame anyone else on the Palestinian side, the best spokesman for the Palestinian cause, appearing very, very often on all the news channels, media, etc. And when former minister and former member of Knesset, Chaim Ramon, approached me, asking me whether I'll be willing to host in this institute Dr. Arikát, I had not a single second of hesitation in saying yes. And I think that this is a very important evening because for too often Arabs generally and Palestinians in particular have missed the opportunity to speak to the Israeli audience, public opinion, and bring directly their message. We can argue about the components of the Arab initiative. We certainly argue about components of the Palestinian position, but the best way of doing it is listening directly to the views of the other side. And so from this point of view, I welcome this opportunity. Dr. Arikát and myself spent I would say many weeks and many months together in negotiations back in 1999, 2000. In many cases, I had to say to my wife that I'm going to spend hours late at night in an unknown hotel somewhere in the vicinity of Jerusalem. But I also promised her that the only thing we had is proximity talks. And nothing else. And by this, I think that I have expressed my view on the proximity talks that are about to be held, currently held, whatever the definition is. Without further ado, we will start, and I hope, Dr. Arikát, that you will be willing to take several questions afterwards. So,
Arikát, thank you very much. That was very kind words. And I thank you and your colleagues for this kind invitation at your institute. I came from Jericho this afternoon, where there was a big rally this morning in my town commemorating the second 62 years of Nakba. We call it Nakba. And I really believe that it can be different. And it should be different. And we can make it different. Truth number one is that since Eve negotiated Adam, I'm the most disadvantaged negotiator in the history of mankind. I have no army, no navy, no air force, no economy. My people are fragmented. If it's any of your words against me in the Congress and the Senate, I don't stand a chance. But who said life is about fairness and justice? I did not wake up one morning and felt my conscience aching for the suffering of Jews and Israelis that I sit and negotiate with you. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it because I believe this is a major Palestinian interest and that we must succeed. And we have come a long way as Palestinians. And I'm not here to score points. I'll try to refrain from doing so. It's unlike my behavior on it, but I'll exercise the utmost amount of self-restraint today. And I know that many in Palestine and Israel today doubt a possibility that peace can be done. It's just the elitist way of thinking, the sophisticated way of thinking today, is that many of my colleagues have reached a point whereby it's not possible. I beg to differ with those. And I'm not in the business of exporting fear. But at the same time, when I say so, I'm not exporting hope. Just speaking about the new realities. Number one, the United States borders, I'm talking about the United States of America's borders, are no longer with Canada and Mexico and the two oceans. The U.S. borders today are with Turkey, Iran, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, China, Pakistan, Arabian Gulf, Jordan, Saudi, and Syria. A nation that has 230,000 forces, soldiers in these two Muslim countries in Iraq and Afghanistan, it means political geography changed. When political geography changed on nations, then the functional role of nations in that given region will change. And those who don't see the change will be doomed. Because I don't think the U.S. needs anyone today to protect its interests. They don't need Arabs, they don't need Israel. They have 10 kids going back to America, wrapped in flags and on wheelchairs every day. You want to get them back home? Two things need to be done. Number one, peace between Palestinians and Israelis. And here you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you don't need to eat the apple from the start. There's going to be a two-state solution on the 67 borders. As Palestinians, we have recognized Israel's right to exist in peace and security since 1988. And then, with the negotiations that have been taking place over the years, many people thought that there was no progress, because Palestinians and Israelis have eyes that only see things that are not achieved. In your households, as Israelis, I'm sure, you don't see what you achieve. You only see what's not achieved. The same thing to my household. But I believe Palestinians and Israelis, over the last decades of negotiations, have come a long, long way. I'm not saying Israelis and Palestinians are better than anyone. I'm saying they're different. I'm not dealing with conflict resolution, Peru, Ecuador. I'm not dealing with Biafra, Nigeria. I'm not dealing with Saudi-Jordan border. I'm not dealing with any other conflict. This is a different conflict. It's different. There have been people in this region that have been going to synagogues every Saturday for 5,700 years, I think, at Tamar by now, saying the same thing every Saturday, and they believe that they're hearing it and saying it for the first time. I can't change a single word of what they say. That's their system of belief. The same thing is applicable to Christians who have been going to churches for 2,000 years, doing the same thing every Sunday, and for 1,430 years, every Friday, people going to mosques, saying the same thing and probably hearing it and feeling that they're saying it for the first time. I cannot change a word of this. But I know that Jews will not convert to Christianity and Islam and become Palestinians, and I know that Christian and Muslim will not convert to Judaism and become Israelis. What do we do? What do we do? It is the number one priority. It's a two-state solution. That's my option. That's the realistic option. I wonder how many of you know what takes place on the other planet called the West Bank, or what do you call whatever you want to call it. I don't know how many of you have visited my planet, Jericho or Nablus, Shechem or Hebron, and when, unless you're a soldier or you're a reservist or a settler. What do you care? Ignore facts in the 21st century means they don't exist. That's it. Ignore it. It's going to be a two-state solution. The second thing Americans need to do in this region is democracy in the Arab world. And anyone who says that Arabs are not ready for democracy is a racist. Period. Now, as far as the first track, Americans cannot make peace for us. Americans cannot make concessions required by Palestinians or Israelis. Americans cannot make decisions for Palestinians or Israelis. And many people say that since the Americans came back 19 years later and suggested proximity talks, that this is a regression, that Palestinians are not sitting with Israelis face to face, that's going backward. All right, that can be argued. But the other argument in the science of negotiations is that proximity is when two parties exhaust everything they have, turn every possible stone, they cannot conclude what they're trying to achieve, then comes a third party to do four tasks: to go between, to facilitate, to arbitrate, to mediate, or to do all of the above. But then it's up to the two parties to say that this is binding or not binding. It's not up to the Americans. The Americans are doing a good job. And as Palestinians, we decided to stay the course and to give President Obama, Secretary Clinton, and Mr. Mitchell the chance they deserve to succeed in their endeavor. And we began last week with them, and hopefully this week we'll begin our second round. And you know what? We're not going to ask Mr. Mitchell, what do you do with Mr. Netanyahu? I can't stand guards on the lips of Mr. Netanyahu. I can't. He can choose to stand every morning and say whatever he wants. But I'm talking to Mitchell. I'm talking to Mitchell about the core issues. I'm talking to Mitchell about borders, about security. And if Mr. Netanyahu chooses to speak to Mitchell about the game of Maccabi Haifa and Hapoel Tel Aviv last night, that's his business. I'm not going to ask him. I'm not going to bother. Ask Mitchell, what are you doing with Bibi? If he wants to speak in the mirror, he can. I'm going to demonstrate once and for all that as Palestinian leadership, President Mahmoud Abbas is fully ready for what it takes to achieve the end game. In the year 2008, Prime Minister Olmert and President Abbas engaged in the most serious negotiations. And I heard Mr. Olmert speak about an offer he made to us. I want to vouch for that. And I say here, Oreid, that Prime Minister Olmert made an offer. He showed us a map, and the baseline was the June 4th, 1967 borders, and asked that he annex 6.5% of the West Bank in return for 5.8% from Israel, and the 0.7% will be considered the safe passage between the West Bank and Gaza. And to his calculation, this constituted 100% of the territory of June 4th, 1967. Mr. Olmert is right that such an offer was made. What Mr. Olmert forgot to mention to you is that there was a counter offer made to him by my president. I was there. That offer constituted a map, and Prime Minister Olmert was told, we do recognize the state of Israel's right to exist, secure, recognized borders in the 67 lines. And we know that you have been creating illegal settlements, as far as we're concerned, international law is concerned, since 1968. But we are willing to accept another concession, swaps of land. And we offered a swap of 1.9%. But we said to Mr. Olmert that under no circumstances shall we accept a single inch less than the size of the territory of the West Bank, Gaza, that existed on June 4th, 1967. That's 6,258 square kilometers. To be precise, 6,235 square kilometers. And there are 46 square kilometers called no man's land. We will apply the Peru-Ecuador formula, split, and that's the size. Then we discussed security with Mr. Olmert. And we told him, don't demand. We know the price of 2 tanks equals 2 schools. We want the 2 schools. Define my functions. What do you want me to do? What do you envisage the state of Palestine to do? Are we going to fight smuggling? Are we going to fight organized crime? Are we going to be normal as much as you are and have mafias and so on? Are we going to have public order? What is it that we need to pursue these tasks? Maybe not a navy, not an air force, not tanks. What is it? And then we went further. We said, you know what? We need a third party to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, because we're a very young authority. And if I'm going to collect the mistakes we committed, I'm going to have volumes of mistakes. Then try to press them. Not because we followed mistakes every morning because we want to commit mistakes. We did not know otherwise. We're a very young authority. We have an overloaded wagon of complexities. We're going through a transition. I cannot define its variables in most of the days. It's very difficult. Whether I can convince you, whether I can ask you to see the way I see things, it's none of my business. It's none of your business. You have the exclusive minds on righteousness and rightness. You don't commit mistakes. It's only me who can commit the mistakes. God forbid that Israelis will commit mistakes. But 67 swaps, security arrangements, a state with limitations. There's something called limited arms. But guys, Israelis, please understand that when we speak about limited arms, there is no such a thing as limited dignity. We're going to be fully dignified people and fully dignified nations as your neighbors. We will not accept your presence in our state. You say you want to stay in the Jordan Valley for security reasons? When was the last time anybody of you visited my hometown, Jericho, and the constituency of Jericho? Go visit. You control 84% of the water. And in 2009, your GMP per capita reached $36,000. And the GMP per capita for the Aqba Jabal refugee camper is $900. I have to buy my water from your companies at 75 cents a cubic meter. May 2010. Maybe you don't like this, but this is the facts. Do you have settlements in the Jordan Valley as you have in Ariel or Ma'ali Adumim or Kiryat Ba? No. You have the biggest palm trees. You have the biggest farms. You have the biggest grape wineries. You have the biggest companies. And you say you want to keep it for security reasons. No. When we entertain limited arms, third party, and we have chosen the EU to come and be the third party, not to come as a combating force against Israel or Jordan and Egypt, God forbid. We want Jordan to be prosperous, to be strong. And Jordan's security and well-being and prosperity is a must for us, is backbone for our independence and our stability. The same thing is applied to Egypt. And the Jordanian king told Jim Jones, who was doing the talks on security the day after, anything short of foreign forces in Jordan territory or Jordanian forces in Palestinian territory, we're fully on board. And the same thing did President Mubarak. And we said the third party can inspect on us. We're going to have passages, we're going to have airports. The Israelis keep suspecting us, doubting us. I've heard some of your prime ministers as back as 1998 speak about S-300 in Gaza. Missiles and so on, 2000. I heard. We need this third party to alleviate our concerns and your concerns. On refugees, we said just an agreed solution, as the Arab Peace Initiative said. On Jerusalem, we discussed all the formulas of Arab neighborhoods, Israeli settlements, and so on. And we know that you don't want to take 300,000 Palestinians and make them Israeli citizens. We know that. I don't know. I really don't know what to do anymore. Anyway, when Mitchell began with us in the first round, Ambassador, we began with him where we left off, with these maps, with this seriousness, to demonstrate to him that if you want to shoot for the end game, you have a Palestinian leadership that's willing to engage. Period. That's it. I'm not going to waste my time talking about interim solutions, interim periods, state with provisional borders. I don't want to. If, then at the end of the day, as Palestinians, we have made all this, and we're willing to accommodate and live in peace and security next to you to end our Nakba. And if you're going to insist that my hometown Jericho should be called Jericho, is that what you call it? And Nablus, you want to be called Shechem? And Hebron, you want to call it Hebron? Talk to me. Talk to me. I'm not scared. I'm telling you openly, my option, and the only sane option, realistic option, is the two-state solution on the 67 borders, with swaps, with the security arrangements, and all arrangements that has to be agreed by you and us, and it's doable. It's doable. We don't need negotiations anymore. We need decisions by leaders. We have reached that point. We have turned every possible stone. Now, it is my moment of truth. Israelis need end of conflict. Israelis need end of claims. Israelis need to understand that there is a leadership and to trust that's willing to make the requirements for peace. You have a partner. I'm not going to doubt whatever you have in your leadership. But it's also your moment of truth. We're both going through labor pains. We're both going through labor pains. We're both going through a transition. My option, and please don't mistake me, I don't want Israeli journalists to say tomorrow on the headline, Sa'ab Arikad comes to Tel Aviv and says one-state solution. As you always twist what we try to say. I'm saying, again, I wish I speak Hebrew. I'm saying in English, my option is the two-state solution on the 1967 borders, with agreed swaps, with the security arrangements, with all the modalities that will be accepted by both of us. And we should give Mitchell the chance he deserves. If you don't want this option, and if you want me to carry a brush and a paint and go to the entrance of Jericho, I did, and brush Ariha and write Jericho, tell me. If you don't want to call me Sayyid Sa'ab Arikאת, Sayyid is Mr. And you want to refer to me as Mar Sa'ab Arikאת, well, it sounds glorious, Mar. It sounds to my ears. Is that the option you want? Tell you something else. Those children who are being born in non-Jewish households between my constituency, Jericho, and your town, Tel Aviv, when they enter the first grid in 2016, they are the majority in this land. Yes, I know that you have 5,000 tanks, 3,000 fighting planes, nuclear, America, whatever. And I described myself from the beginning, since Eve negotiated Adam, what I constitute and what I represent. Is that the option you want? Talk to me. I'm not scared. Make up your mind. It's your moment of truth. Option number one, again, and I say so people don't twist my words. My option is the two-state solution. A state of Palestine to live in peace and security next to the state of Israel. If you have reached the conclusion that this is not doable and cannot be done, and you don't have a partner, and you don't have people to trust, and my people on my side and my leadership, and you want to pursue the River Jordan, the Mediterranean option, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. Talk to me about it. I want to be equal to you. Because what you don't know, when I asked how many of you have been to the West Bank recently, the third option out there are roads in the West Bank today I cannot use as a Palestinian. And this is shameful in 2010. And please bear with me and don't get angry. As a Palestinian, I can be racist. As a Muslim, I can be racist. Israelis can be racist. Christians can be racist. White, blacks, everyone. And such diseases as racism and bigotry, once it inflicted underneath our skins as men and women throughout history, we tended to justify it. Sometimes sociologically, sometimes economically, sometimes religiously, sometimes, for God's sake, sexually, because the skin is a little different than the others. We tended to justify it. And also, security is another justification. What takes place in the West Bank today cannot stand and should not stand by you. We have an opportunity. I believe the option of two states is genuine, is doable. We have come a long way in these negotiations. I know that people want to see results, and that's their right. I know people don't see deeds. They don't want to talk to us anymore or hear us talking anymore. Yes, and the Arabs have offered the most strategic thing they have offered since 1948, the Arab Peace Initiative. Did you read it? I'm not talking about, I did not ask, did you analyze it? Because your analysis of things take me a long, long way. I know you guys, I really do. Did you read it? Did you read that the Arabs are telling you that once you withdraw to the 67 lines, we're going to normalize relations with you? 57 nations? As King Abdullah of Jordan said, it's not a two-state solution, it's the 58-state solution. That's an opportunity. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I take your questions is my internal situation as Palestinian. There is a coup d'etat in Gaza led by Hamas. And by the way, democracy did not fail in Palestine. We had good elections in 2006. Hamas, a Palestinian political party, won the elections. In 18 days per our basic law, the Legislative Council met, elected a new speaker of Hamas, and so on in the smoothest transition, peaceful transition. In 5 weeks, Hamas formed a government, and they were sworn in front of the president as a government of Palestinian Authority. Democracy worked. Democracy succeeded in Palestine. Hamas failed in Palestine. I remember the day when Mr. Haniyeh came to submit his cabinet to us. I had been elected to represent Fatah Party from Jordan Valley constituency, Jericho in the Jordan Valley. And I was chosen by the minority party, Fatah, that day, to give the loyal minority speech. It was me, historical record. So I said to him, Mr. Haniyeh, today you are not the Prime Minister of Hamas. You are my Prime Minister. You are the Prime Minister of all Palestinians. Please act as such. I told him, look at Imam Khomeini. When the revolution took place in Iran, he changed the name of his country, constitution, the social fabric, economic, political, and so on. But the first statement he came out with that the Islamic Republic of Iran commits to all obligations of Iran. Obligations are on the country, not on the parties. So did Nelson Mandela. So did all governments that came out through history, whether by elections, whether by heredity, whether by coups, whether by revolutions. That's the nature of governments. These are our obligations. Unfortunately, Hamas chose to say, because we won the elections, the UN must change its charter and resolutions. Because we won the elections, the Arab League must cancel its initiative. And because we won the elections, the PLO must cancel its agreement with Israel. This cannot happen. This cannot stand. This cannot stand. This is a Palestinian internal problem. We're trying to handle it, and if we don't help ourselves on this, nobody else will. If I have an end-game agreement with you, if President Mahmoud Abbas can show Palestinians that he can have an end-game agreement with you on the two-state solution peacefully, we will prevail. If we do not have an end-game agreement with you, we will disappear. And today, I came here as a partner. I came here to tell you that it's doable. I came here to say that Senator Mitchell deserves to be given the chance. I hope that your government, you, will understand that you have a partner, and when you have the choice between settlements or peace, you will choose peace. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Saab, for insightful, courageous, forthcoming presentation. We would like to have a discussion, but not a rowdy discussion. Dan Margalit sits there, and he, for years, conducts what is called Politica in Israel, and there you can hardly enter a word. So let's have a discussion, and people who want to ask questions, please raise your Oded Garanot, please.
Dr. Arikאת, I suggest first to overcome the problem of Mar and Syed to stay with doctors. It sounds the same, both languages, so we can settle for it. I want to ask you, I talked to some of the Israeli negotiator, the Olmert government, talking of borders, talking 67 borders, swap, security. They had the feeling that the Palestinian president is either incapable or unwilling to get to the moment of truth on something which is very sensitive for the Israelis, which is the right of return. I don't know if you just omitted it in your speech or you want to say a few words about it. In other words, Israelis would be more tempted to agree on the points that you have raised rather than to hear an evasive position on the right of return. So could you say a few words about it? Thank you.
Before I give the floor, I will abuse my position and ask a question. We all agree, I think that I speak for at least the majority here, we all agree on the two-state solution. That's not in argument. But given the difficulties that you alluded, and I was encouraged to hear that you speak about your domestic political difficulties, and we have our own, as we all know. Given the difficulty at reaching, at this stage, the comprehensive solution, and I heard you saying you are against partial or... Let me ask you, in spite of this, is it not an option acceptable to you if we agree on the results of the end game? If we agree to a timetable to start changing the situation on the ground because the status quo is unacceptable to you and unacceptable to the majority of the Israelis, and start with significant, not just verbal, but significant changes on the ground, isn't it an option which we should look at rather than dismiss it out of hand? Itamar.
Yeah, okay.
No, it works.
I had the audience back of me in mind. Before you agreed to the current proximity talks, you were looking for the approval by the Arab League, Amro Musa. Now, for years, the Palestinian National Movement fought for what you call Istiqlaliyat al-Qarar al-Palestini, the Palestinian independent decision-making. Now you seem to have reversed it and gone to ask for permission from the Arab League. Can you explain why?
Danny Gillerman.
Thank you, Dr. Arikad, for a very stimulating talk and a very frank and vivid one. You touched towards the end on a question which I think is at the back or maybe in the midst of all our minds, and that is the fragmentation in the Palestinian among the Palestinian people. By the way, I've been to the West Bank, I've been to Ramallah. I think I last met you in Ramallah when we had lunch with Prime Minister Fayyad. I must say I was very impressed by what has happened in Ramallah, economically, socially, security-wise. And I know it's emulated in Jenin and in Nablus and in many other places. But at the end of the day, I think we as Israelis would like to hear a more precise answer to the question of if and when we do reach a settlement and an agreement. And as you said, I think we're nearer than ever, and we need bold leadership on both sides to make tough decisions. Do you really believe that you can bring Hamas along as part of that agreement? Or at the end, are we talking not about a two-state solution or a 23-state solution or a 58-state solution, but a three-state solution?
Yossi Alfer, please.
Thank you. Saaab, I wonder if you could address the possibility that these negotiations will drag on and not succeed, and that we will confront the deadline that the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority has set, August 2011, for completing the creation of the institutions of a Palestinian state. What, in your view, should happen then under these circumstances, that there is no agreement, but the Palestinians declare they have completed their institution building? What, in your view, should happen then, and what, in your view, will happen then?
If I can tag along this question, is it possible that... No. Our relations are predicated on a healthier... I just tag along this question, is it possible that by that date or any other date there will be a unilateral declaration of independence? Please. Okay, let's... oh, sorry, Barak.
Yeah. Mr. Arikאת, I'm happy that you are here with us. I would like to ask you a question that it's integrating some domestic problems in Israel and something that I think that in the past it was in the main, let's see, political vision of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. It is dealing with what we are calling Arab Tamani or Arba'in. Let's say we are getting to independent Palestinian state, and what is your vision, what you are thinking about, what is going in those parts of this population that is speaking nowadays about, let's say, their rights and their own autonomy and things like that. Thank you so much.
Smadar.
And what if there is no agreement? If you can't, because you, and I'm quoting you, you said, we shall disappear. What did you mean by that? And another question is, are you optimistic with what you are saying and the reports that you are getting from the talks and negotiations?
Maybe we'll take this first batch and see whether...
Maybe others want to ask and do it all at once. I don't want to take that time.
okay. כן, בבקשה, יוסי.
You asked us to trust you. But at the same time, you said about 20 times 2 states, never saying 2 states to 2 peoples. How can we trust you?
You asked me about whether I accept a Jewish state or not?
Sorry? Yes.
Are you asking me whether I accept a Jewish state? Why
Yes.
don't you ask me in blunt terms? Like
Yes, I asked whether you are going to accept Israel as a Jewish state. I'm asking. Well, let me rephrase it. As
You
the
already-
nation state of the Jewish people, okay?
In 2 minutes, you reached an agreement. Okay.
You said the Arab initiative is an opportunity. Isn't it phrased more like a dictate than opportunity?
What's a dictate?
It says what has to happen. It doesn't give room for negotiations. The Arab initiative, yes. And finally, you said that we should trust you, but at the same time you mentioned this in some cynicism, things that were said in '98 about S-300 in Gaza. But we have today arms in Gaza that have a range of something like 60 to 80 kilometers range. How can we trust you?
Question there.
No, I see there, Elizabeth.
Dr. Arikat, there's a small but growing trend among the settlers, including some of the most radical settlers, of talking about good neighborliness and perhaps being able to stay in Palestine as good neighbors. And I wanted to ask you, can you envisage in any way, shape or form some kind of Jewish minority in a future state of Palestine?
כן, פרופסור יער. חכה רגע למיקרופון, כן.
Sorry. Yeah, speaking about trust, I just would like to give you a fact. You know, I've been conducting the peace index or the peace and war index since '94, and there is a constant in all these surveys. When you ask the Israeli whether they're willing, first of all, to negotiate with the Palestinians, to accept the two-state solution, to evacuate most of the settlements in the West Bank. At the time, it was also the Gaza. Gaza is no longer relevant. The answer is yes. When you ask, do you believe that the Palestinians can be trusted that through negotiations we'll reach peace agreement, the 70 or 75% who support all these things drops to about 30 or 35%. And the question that I'm asking, except for rhetoric, what tangible stuff? I'm asking as somebody that would like to reassure the Israeli public, or to be more precise, the Israeli Jewish public, that indeed the Palestinians are sincere.
Okay.
Mr. Arikאת, from all the core issues, I would like if you can focus on Jerusalem.
How are you?
Maybe I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Maybe everything is doable, but can you transcript for us or show us what kind of solution do you have to the problem of Jerusalem? Where the border will be passed? Who will control the Temple Mount or Al-Aqsa Mosque? Who will be in charge of the West Wall? How can we really reach a doable agreement on Jerusalem? What is your capital, Palestinian Jerusalem? What is exactly? Is that Abu Dis, Sheikh Jarrah, or the old city?
כן. ראובן. ראובן מרחב.
Thank you. Mr. Arikאת, this question may sound very petty or very minute to you, but in the week when Israel has been admitted to the OECD, and you speak of trust and you speak of a two-state solution, why on earth should a sensible person like your foreign minister write an official letter to the OECD opposing the admission of Israel to that organization, whereas to my understanding such an act would certainly not harm the Palestinians? And this is a special flavor because the gentleman who stands right to you, I think to the best of my recollection, was the first Israeli who tried to launch that admission.
And I might add in a some sort of humoristic that I lost a falafel to a friend of mine because the day before we were admitted, in spite of the Palestinian efforts, I said that I can count at least one or two European states who will oppose it, and somehow we managed to prevail. Any more questions? Shlomo Brom, you know. By the way, can you introduce to me some of the people that were... you seem to be knowing all these persons, all the people here. Shlomo.
Dr. Arikאת, thank you for your presentation. You asked the Israelis to give Mitchell a chance, and I want very much to give Mitchell a chance because I share your vision of the two-state solutions, and I personally am not so far away from your positions on most of the issues. But if that is the case, why, for God's sake, 1.5 years were wasted? Why do we have the perception that actually the Palestinian leadership was dragged into these proximity talks almost by force by the Americans?
I think that I don't see any...
I don't see any other. I see a finger there.
No, that.
I heard Mr. Olmer, not in a private conversation anymore, but he lectured in Tel Aviv, and he said that you didn't respond to his map and to his plan. Why didn't you respond to his to the map that he showed you with all those facts that you mentioned already? He tried to convince you that he gave you the best proposal that Israel can give in the foreseeable future. But you just disappeared. He admitted it. He said you didn't say no, but you just disappeared. Now, if you are going to tell me, Dr. Arikאת, that it is because he was close to finish his term, it's okay. Then I don't. If you are not going to use this argument, then so it's over. No, because you said that obligations continue, right, from government to government. Therefore, if you take.
Your question is very good.
Okay, bye.
Yes, I was also.
I'm pray I'll be capable of answering. You know.
I was also tempted to say that you answered it, but I will. Sir, please.
Yes, to all of you, Mr. Olmert offered this. He showed us this. What is in blue is the 6.5% he wanted to take from the West Bank. That's blue. And what's in brown, dark brown, is what he offers to the 4.8%, the swap. This is his map. He did not give it to us, but that's what he showed us.
The reconstruction you made.
Yes, look how honest we are. We say projection of Israeli proposal territory. Projection. All right? You want to make peace with me and you show it to me, and then if I have something quick to catch it on, memory, phone, whatever, that's fine. I hope that Mr. Olmert is watching us on Israel TV. Can we remind you that we have seen this map from President Mahmoud Abbas offering you a recognition of Israel on 1967 borders plus 1.9% swaps? Mr. Olmert, we appreciate your negotiations with you. But I don't think it's fair for you or for us not to tell the story the way it happened. Maybe you've forgotten, but you have seen this map. And not only that, we have shown him another map, and we told him a friendly nation, because we have friends now who have satellites in space, have given us, we asked them a question, what are the built-up areas of settlements in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem? And they gave us this map, where the red shows the built-up areas of settlements, that constitute 1.2% of the land. All right? So we asked him, why do you want 6.5% of the land? If you want to have blocks, you're not going to need the settlements in the Jordan Valley here or here in the south. And he's seen this map. I think he has a copy of it. He's seen this map, and he has a copy of it. And not only that, because, I said from the beginning, life is not fair. Life is not fair. And this time, we said what kind of mistakes we did in Camp David. Because sometimes we get to ask ourselves the questions. If people commit mistakes and they admit that they committed mistakes, what do they do in order not to repeat these mistakes? So in 2008, we came out with an idea. Mr. President, that's to President Abbas, why don't you go to Washington, take the two maps with you, and take a matrix of a summary of 288 meetings that were conducted between Palestinians and Israeli negotiators in 12 committees, okay? And just go to the President of the United States in front of Dr. Rice, Mr. Hudley, and tell him, Mr. President, and this happened in December 18th, 2008, Mr. President, we have been engaged in very serious exchange with the Israeli Prime Minister Olmert. We never mentioned that he faces internal problems or external problems. That's not decent. That's not appropriate for us, even to think this. And we said to the President of the United States, we'd like to lock these things officially with you, with this matrix of a summary of our positions on all issues. Because Israelis, when I come to speak to them, they want to know the results of negotiations before they begin. They forget that negotiations is about trade-offs between issues and within issues, and they want me to put a neon, saying stupid, to say exactly what you want from me. We have offered the President of the United States the matrix on a 37-page document with these three maps, and we told them we believe something should be done. That's what President Abbas told him. So he looked at it, and he said, Mr. President, that's very serious and genuine, and thank you for coming to see me. And then he took Dr. Rice and Hudley to a side, and then they came back 20 minutes later, and they said to Abu Mazen, Mr. President, we'd like you to send someone on January 3rd, just for this purpose. It will be 17 days before I leave office, January 3rd, 2009. And Abu Mazen told him immediately, Sa'ab will come on January 3rd. And then we were informed by the Americans later that Mr. Shalom Turjuman will be in January 3rd. Instead of preparing to go to Washington on January 3rd, they went to Gaza on December 27th. But to be fair to President Bush and to Dr. Rice, my information is that when in the transition period, they gave the new administration an 11-page summary with these documents and maps. And I know for a fact that it's with them. So this time, no one could stand up and say, we offered the Palestinians the biggest offer that we made in our life, and Palestinians said no. Like the way they sat me up in Camp David. In Camp David, President Clinton asked to see me and Shlomo Ben Ami the eve of our departure. And we said we came a long way and we turned so many stones. And then they asked me, imagine the way I was set up, to draft a communique saying how positive these negotiations were, and we came a long way, and we'll go back home and continue the negotiations. Please look at newspapers on July 25th or 26th, you'll find that statement. And I was asked by Shlomo and President Clinton to go and give it a positive spin in the media. And then I went to a press conference and I said things. And then when I finished the press conference, the journalist asked me, but President Clinton and Mr. Barak said that they have offered you the biggest offer, and you said no. I asked President Clinton a year and a half later here in Tel Aviv, he saw me, why did you do that, Mr. President? Why did you do that? You brought Palestinians and Israelis to know new advances. Why the petty politics? Why did you do this? I'm no match. Why did you do this? He said, I was told if I don't say this, there will not be a peace camp in Israel. Look, I don't like to nag. I don't like to complain. I don't like to waste your time. But this is the projection, and this is the truth. Okay? So Mr. Olmert has an offer. And that offer was left with the Americans. And the new American administration, when we met them, President Abbas was asked, is it true that you submitted so and so and so on? And then Abu Mazen went to the files and asked me to put this in front of President Obama. And I think Senator Mitchell began last round, and he knows where we started from. So if they want to make peace, we're ready. If they want to score points, if he's going to stand in the mirror, I promise every one of you, I will not score points today. I will not be confrontational. You know, if somebody in your prime ministership will stand in the mirror every morning and say, mirror, mirror, am I still offering Mahmoud Abbas the chance to come to negotiations? And he's saying no, that's fine. This is not the way to conduct politics. This is the truth. We want a partner. And you know what? You're telling me a question was asked to me why I was forced to come to the proximity talks. For God's sakes, I called Hosni Arad the first day he took office, in April 2nd, 2009, and asked to see him. And 3 times he put me in meetings and cancelled. That's it. I admit it to you. I admitted to you from the beginning that if it's my word against any of yours anywhere, I'm dead. Who said life is about justice and fairness and truth? It's what you have the perception. All right? What does it matter if I say the truth or not? You want to test me? And even the trust business. All right? I'm not going to be opening a company with you. I'm just going to make sure that you live and let live. Okay? And I'm giving you exactly the models that will make sure that you don't even have to trust me, that a third party will come and make sure that your concerns are taken care of. On all questions that I was asked about Jerusalem, about refugees, and about water, and about settlements, and about all these issues are the permanent status, the core issues. We have come a long way on these issues. A long way. And please don't expect me to come and say what is offered in each one of them. But can I make an agreement